Hello there, this is Olusegun Yikami. Once more bringing you another quick review. Only this time it's going to be about the FTSE 100 as well as the S&P 500. First thing you will notice that I'm bringing it to you on a Tuesday instead of yesterday. I thought it best that we look at the market, see what's going on before saying anything. So let's get started. We're looking at the S&P 500, the weekly chart for the S&P 500, and as I've often said, the larger time frames, more or less set the overall trend in the markets. And using my favorite indicator, the Ichimoku cloud, we can do a video about that sometime for those of you who are curious about it or who have never used it. Just put something in the comments and tell me if you would like to see a video specifically about the Ichimoku cloud. But anyway, let's talk about the S&P 500. Looking very quickly at the weekly charts, we can see that today's price action, is within the cloud. Now, anyone who has traded with the Ichimoku cloud will tell you that whenever you see the price action within the cloud, you do not do any trading. You wait for that price to come out of the cloud, either whether it's above the cloud bullish or below the cloud bearish, but you wait for the price to clearly come out of the cloud before you do any trading whatsoever. Right, that's the first thing. The second thing that we see is that it is pretty obvious that even though all the indicators concerning the weekly chart here are still bullish because they are above the cloud, the Chiku is above the cloud, the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen is also above the cloud. So clearly they still have bullish tendencies. We can also see here, like I've often said, that when you trade, particularly when you trade with the Ichimoku, one of the most misunderstood parts of the Ichimoku has been the Chiku span, which is this one here, which is essentially the price 26 days prior. Now, if the Chiku span is running free, then you have something going on, you have a trend, it tells you the overall trend. But if it's not, then you must pay attention. And here we do have to pay attention here because you can see that the Chiku span is caught between the price action as well as the Kijun-sen. Now this means, to some extent, the Kijun-sen may, and I repeat, may act as a point of support. If it does, then it means that this price action for tomorrow will probably continue to go up and not down. And so that may happen. But as I've often said, for those of you who read my blog, I always say your guess is as good as mine. The markets will do what the markets want to do. We trade the market in front of us, not the one we want. So let's look at the weekly chart while we're at it. I beg your pardon, the daily chart. I'm sorry. We've just looked at the weekly. And here is the daily chart of the S&P 500. And as you can see here, this is clearly bearish because everything is below the cloud. The Chiku is below the cloud. The Tenkan-sen and Kijun-sen are also below the cloud. And the Kijun-sen is above the Tenkan-sen here. That is, this one is above this one. This is the Tenkan-sen here. Nevertheless, the day's price action had fallen right down to about 2729 or 2732 and recovered somewhat. Remember, the Chiku span here is running free. Therefore, it is going to more or less set the tone in the direction of the price direction. So we don't know. It's still bearish. It might, although it's looking bearish, it might become bullish as time goes on. And that's what it seems to be indicating at the moment. But we'll wait and see. As I've often said, reversals come from the inside out. And then they propagate higher. So let's look at the 4-hour chart just very quickly to tell us. And here again, very similar to the daily chart. Again, it's bearish. There has been a massive gain here on this day, on this particular day's price action. We may see a continued upward drive of the price. But as I said, we will always trade the market that is in front of us, not the one we want. Let's switch over quickly to the FTSE 100, and here is our weekly chart, which doesn't look good at all. Massive price drop. Chuku is running free and pointing downwards, all below the cloud. This is definitely in a bearish mode, and I expect that this trend may continue. So let's have a quick look at the daily chart. You'll have to excuse all these chart layout changes, that please excuse me. So again, as we can see, bearish, very bearish. The day's price action is not too far from the Kijun Sen. Sometimes when the price is far from the Kijun Sen, so for instance in this case here we have a bearish outlook, but if let's say this price action was somewhere down here where this cursor is, if it was somewhere here, then we could say that it's getting too far from the Kijun, and if it becomes too far from the Kijun, that could indicate that it's been oversold and stands to have a massive rise. Now, had Kijun Sen and all other indicators been above the cloud, and you had something similar, you could say it's overbought, and therefore it will always come back to the Kijun Sen, which means that if it does come back, that clearly means that the price is going to fall. But in this case, in today's case, we're in a bearish mode. I think we could get a further fall. We could get a further fall of this, but we shall see. We just have to wait and see what will happen. I see that I've been talking about the 4 hour. Let's switch over to the daily very quickly. I'm very sorry about that. So we've done the 4. Okay, so here, okay, good. Here is the daily chart, and with the daily charts, you can see. Look at the price. Look at today's price, and look at the distance from the Kijun. That might already be in an oversold situation, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Again, everything's under the cloud, highly bearish. I suspect that we're going to continue to have a bearish trend when it comes to the FTSE 100, hence further falls in the price. But then again, ladies and gentlemen, the markets will do what the markets want to do. And as I've often said, for those of you who've read my blog, my written blogs, you will now always conclude by saying your guess is as good as mine. Anyway, that's me for the evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and always remember, keep your eyes and ears open and your trading sharp. Have a good one. Bye.